But this being the holiday pregame episode and everything, obviously
Part 3.
Part 3. So logically, if the first one was pre-gaming for Thanksgiving, this next one must also be pre-gaming for Thanksgiving.
Exactly.
The holiday primed for the most putrid like family interactions, and all these fucking little liberals coming through and telling me I can't eat my turkey anymore, and I gotta eat I gotta get the holiday food, not the Christmas food, and I gotta get the liberal tofu.
You're making me say happy holidays?
I say Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas and happy Thanksgiving.
That's right. What do you want me to put up a fucking holiday tree for Christmas? You want me to put my little wokeisms under the holiday tree for woke science clause to come give out?
Who's gonna give you your presents? If it's not Santa, is science gonna give you your presents?
Yeah,
is science gonna come down the chimney?
Oh, do I give Science Claus some fucking a soy latte and avocado toast instead of milk and cookies? Where's the fun in that, people?
Absolutely not.
Where's the fun in that? But real shit though. I cannot believe how fucking hard they lied to us about Thanksgiving in elementary school. These motherfuckers used to tell us, yeah, actually the Native Americans, they didn't call them Native Americans, the Indians and the settlers, the settler colonialists, they got together one day and just all set aside their differences, and the natives brought the cornucopia, and they all came together and just ate food and
consensually,
voluntarily, and we're just so thankful for each other, and it was a day to just give thanks for everything, all the compromise, the colonizers famous for that. Famous for that.
Every time we get to this time of year again, it always makes me think about, like, a lot of people have a positive image of Thanksgiving, right? It's a time to come together, and I think that's generally good for holidays.
Real.
But it always makes me think about how they really did just fucking lie in the classroom.
Like,
they just made it up.
You don't, why does it have to have this like fake and made up history? Why can't it just be like a day where people get together and eat food? Why do we have to lie so hard on the atrocities that the colonizers committed?
It's crazy, especially because whenever we talk about Thanksgiving, like growing up as a kid, you learn about Thanksgiving.
You trace your hand on the paper, you make a little turkey.
You'll make the hand turkey. You'll do all these like festivities for Thanksgiving.
And then lie.
You'll get into your history classes in like middle school and high school, and you'll never learn about just the complete war and genocide we waged against the native people living here, and how we celebrated every year as like a sign of our holiness as an empire, I guess.
Yeah.
It's fucking bizarre how they just straight up crafted an entire mythology, an illusion around what it means to be an American and what Thanksgiving means in the United States. It's crazy.
And now the liberals want to take that away from you.
Exactly.
They remember that, folks.
So anytime the liberals say happy holidays to you, just remember they're the ones being the snowflakes, not us for wanting to say Merry Christmas.
When all those little soy liberals at your Thanksgiving table get ready with Thanksgiving, it's actually built on, tell them to shut the fuck up right there.
Yeah, that's our first lesson to you this holiday season.
That's right. That's what this pregame is for.
Welcome back to Head in the Office, everybody. I hope you're ready for a very vicious and violent holiday season.
That's right. Very special programming coming at you today.
Because we have a lot to prepare you for. Because, quite frankly, a lot happened this year. A lot is still happening.
That's true.
And you're going to encounter some crazy shit at the dinner table, in my humble opinion.
You already know. Top three things off the top of my head. It's got to be inflation. It's got to be abortion. And it's got to be what I personally voted for, crime.
Crime, yeah. Well, when I did go to cast my ballot, my several hundreds of ballots,
I wrote in November
on
most of the ballots.
I was voting for crime. I voted for Fetterman. I voted for Gretchen Whitmer. Those are two votes for crime.
Yeah, that's right. And then I wrote crime in the write-in spot.
Real shit. I am really glad that Jordan Peterson's back on Twitter now.
Oh, that's so funny.
Because he's tweeting nonstop. And he is definitely going to get back into the war on Christmas shit. And nothing is more snowflakey than getting mad about people saying happy holidays and not saying Merry Christmas. Like, that is unironically the most snowflakey thing I've ever seen.
Wasn't he getting mad about something to do with like a company not putting up a real Christmas tree this year?
Yes. No, I think it was like some local city council was like, yeah, we're not gonna put up the Christmas tree because of like energy costs or something.
Yeah.
Amidst energy costs going up worldwide, by the way. And he's like, wow, I can't believe this. And it's like, dog, come on. Like,
shut the fuck up.
He called it tyrannical that they're taking down the Christmas, or they're not putting up the Christmas tree. Like, brother,
he's such a messy bitch.
You gotta stop.
I kind of love it.
I kind of love him.
I kind of love it. They're so like sissies.
He's mentally ill.
Oh, absolutely.
So, yeah. But anyway, welcome back to the show, everybody. Before we get started, I'm going to remind you, as I always do, go and check out our Patreon. Become a patron. We're almost to our goal. Then we'll finally put out that Q&A.
Yep. That
I know people want.
Months now.
I know people want. So go check out the Patreon.
Opened up your fucking wallet.
We've got some new patrons recently off of the live stream we did and the recent TikToks we've had blown up. So if you're new here and you're listening to the episode early for the first time, welcome. And I hope you decide to stay around.
And if you're new here, this holiday pregame is for you.
Exactly. Right. We got to prep you for the holiday season.
Got to get you ready.
But I'll also remind you to go and check out our YouTube, our TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, Discord. Make sure to subscribe, follow everywhere you can find us. It's very important. And also, if you want to help out the show, you can always leave a 5-star review on Apple.
That's right.
And if you leave us a 5-star, big old 5 out of 5, and write us a review, we'll read it on the show. And we got several to read today.
That's right.
Starting off with the first one by LoudB17. Subject line, a must listen. They say, as a guy born and raised in the Bible-thumping rural Alabama and now in the majority right-wing military, this is a perfect podcast for ammo against my fellow service members and family to hopefully turn them to the left. These guys offer easily digestible and hilarious takes on today's politics, not only in the States, but also globally. Number one geopolitical podcast.
You already know.
See, he says right here, I jumped the gun a little bit. See, they are the, quote, number one geopolitical podcast, 10 out of 10 I will always recommend. That's crazy that we've infiltrated the U.S. military.
What can I say? We've got a handle on geopolitics. We're meddling in geopolitics.
Exactly.
Actively.
Yeah, no, we are like caught. We're doing the coups, but we're doing them for our side this time.
I am the CIA.
If Marie Le Pen would have won, we would have done a coup and installed a socialist.
Yeah, fuck the 3-letter organizations. I'm for the 4-letter organizations.
Exactly, Next one we got here. This one's gonna hit especially hard. It's subject line hotties with hot takes.
Oh, that's right.
By Chelsea. I'm not even gonna try. Chelsea. I think that's what Chelsea. I don't know. I love this commentary. Show. I've been secretly playing it intentionally while my partner is home because I thought having such cool bros give progressive takes would make them lean more progressive. I can't wait to watch this show grow. Sending a subscription to YouTube. We're indoctrinating people. Actively.
I am indoctrinating the youth.
Actively.
Next time Matt Walsh or Ben Shapiro get on and talk about how they're indoctrinating the youth, and you see some fucking liberal in their comments like, where does this actually happen? Show me where this indoctrination is happening. Link them to this episode.
Precisely.
It's me.
We're doing the indoctrination, and I'll say it openly because we have an agenda. We have a message to spread. We have global domination to start off, and we've got to make headway somehow.
I'm a grifter.
Yeah, no, literally. Our next one here, totally just a review by Soto Bro. They say, I'm trapped in Ohio. Pray for me, my brothers in Christ, for I'm being punished for the crime of being a decent human being. Now I've been sentenced to live in the ghoul-controlled state of Ohio. Please send help. Also, great pod, 5 stars, no notes.
Maybe you and Alexander can get together and form a little resistance.
Y'all two can meet up if you're not just the same person, and you can help each other out. Our listening base in Ohio is slowly growing, I can tell.
Oh, it is.
So maybe we could probably take over the state of Ohio.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I'm right there. We're in Michigan.
What's that?
I could just drive down.
What's that stat that white supremacist right-wing groups always bring up? It's like you only need 3% of the population to turn against the government to take over the state or something like that. That's what they always say. I don't know if that's true, but that's what, or they say something along the lines of only 30% of settlers fought in the American Revolution. So that's all you need to take over the government or whatever.
Because when you're fighting with muskets that take an hour to reload.
But I bring this up because what if we could amass a group that is about 3% of the Ohio population, and then we take over the state of Ohio, and then we install Tim Ryan as the rightful leader?
I mean, we're almost there already.
That's what I'm saying.
2 people in Ohio, we got to be right there at that 3%.
Yeah, we're getting there. Our final review we got here, Goated Pod by Evan Mosilla. They say Jeremy and Gage, a.k.a. The Boys,
naturally
do a perfect job of describing the news and leftist ideologies in a way that is informative, engaging, and easy to understand, and hilarious. The current state of our country angers me so much, I just want to, and this is in brackets, for legal reasons my lawyer has recommended me to withhold this statement, to the fascists in our country. But these two heroes of freedom are the light shining through the dark cloud. Thank God I live in a blue state where people are mostly sane. Godspeed to you two. Keep up the amazing work. I appreciate that.
I love that.
I appreciate
am the Messiah.
Yeah, exactly. Evan, I mean, I'm not trying to self-aggrandize or anything like that, but I am the prophet.
Delusions of grandeur, they're not delusions.
Exactly.
They're not.
I am the prophet. Anyways, getting into our holiday pregame show, look, we've already talked about it a little bit, but we need to prepare you for the holiday season.
Of course.
Inevitably, you're going to get into conversations about politics with your family members, and it's going to maybe inflame tensions. It can get very easy to get caught up in the emotion of the moment.
Yeah.
It could be easy for you to get caught up in, the blood sport of debating about
those
politics.
Soy liberals at the dinner table.
Exactly.
Can't seem to handle
soy
anything.
liberals and soy conservatives, to be honest, because you are fighting both sides. You're fighting a war on two fronts, if you will.
That's right.
And it's easy to get caught up in all that, but we want to give you the cheat sheet to operating within that environment in a very easy, effective, clean way, while coming out on top and defeating all of your family members, because it's a contest.
Exactly. Oh, absolutely. When you're in the middle of an argument with one of your relatives, you maybe don't know what to say.
Yeah.
You say, "Excuse me, I have to use the bathroom." You go to head in the office. You memorize the timestamps. You say, "Okay, at 8:39 minutes, they were talking about crime and why we voted for it." And then you scroll there. You hear our take, and then you go back out, and then you say that. And you forget what to say next, and you say, "Actually, I didn't finish. I need to go back to the bathroom."
Yeah, I didn't get it all out. I'll be right back. And it will be, like if you're celebrating Thanksgiving or something like that, you'll have reason to go to the bathroom a lot, right? You can come up with an excuse.
Oh, just drink some coffee.
Exactly. I drink some coffee. I just ate so much mac and cheese, like my stomach's on fire.
Holy shit!
But anyway, we got to get into it because we have to start off with a very important talking point, something that just popped into the news recently. Although it's kind of been sitting in the background for a while.
We've been waiting for a while, speculating on.
Trump announced his re-election bid recently.
I'm so excited.
Last Tuesday, he announced his re-election bid. And there's a couple of notable things we have to talk about. So we're going to throw in a little bit of news here.
Yeah.
But I will say, what an evil thing to do before Thanksgiving.
Oh, my God. No, yeah.
That's putting himself back into the limelight. He's back on Twitter, by the way. Might not be posting as much as before, but he's going to be back at the forefront, at least for the time being. And he's just injected himself into everyone's family.
Oh yeah, everyone is welcoming him back to Twitter, including us, because that's funny. I'm sorry, but him coming back on Twitter is funny, and I'm kind of excited that he announced his re-election bid. I'm like excited now until election day, when there'll be a pit in my stomach when I realize that this guy can actually win.
Yeah, when we get to the point where it's like November 4th or whatever, or Tuesday 2024, and we're
I'm
just
like, oh, holy shit, the polls are looking good.
And then we're sitting here we're sitting upstairs in Gage's house covering
Facts.
But anyway, Trump announced his re-election bid. We got to talk about a couple of things. And I have a little cheat code you can use later on. When they're debating Trump versus DeSantis. But I'll save that for later. You got to stay. You got to stick the whole time.
That's for your Ben Shapiro listening family members.
Apparently, with this announcement, he was at Mar-a-Lago, I think, in Florida when he was announcing this. It was like 8 p.m. on Tuesday, Eastern time or something like that. And apparently, many of his kids just didn't show up.
Oh, Ivanka said something like she wasn't going to participate in politics anymore. And I saw a thread on r/politics earlier today talking about how her and Jared Kushner are probably feds.
Well, we came out with that take about Jared Kushner.
We've been saying this.
We said, like, unironically, our take was that Jared Kushner's a Fed.
Yeah.
Like the whole time, back when the Trump raid happened, our thought was like, Jared Kushner snitched on him because he's looking for immunity for himself and Ivanka.
That'd be so hard.
And Ivanka testified before the January 6th committee.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't be surprised if they got some kind of deal or they are just Feds
All
now.
I'm saying, at least Jared Kushner is 99% a Fed.
All I'm saying is that the FBI and the CIA and other, three-letter organizations have an eye for important, confidential informants that they want to grab.
Us as a four-letter organization, the leading four-letter organization, I kind of know how these things work.
Exactly.
I can see it.
We have an eye for it.
That's right. I have the foresight.
Exactly. But anyway, apparently they weren't there. And there was also news reports that security wasn't letting people leave. Apparently people were getting, because this was like an hour and 4 minutes long or something like that, right? Yeah. And I hope you all appreciate my commitment to the show because I watched all of it.
Oh, that's wild.
Just to prepare for this section. And people apparently were like getting bored through it because, spoiler alert, he kind of was not doing as well as he normally does.
The sauce.
And people were trying to leave and they wouldn't let them leave. They were just keeping them in. So that the room couldn't clear out, and then it would look bad for him on the media. So
damn, that room was so fucking gaudy too.
Yeah,
it was just all gold everywhere.
It was not great, and like we know that Trump has a history of pumping up the attendance numbers that he'll have for his events.
Yeah.
He's done this like for the last 6 years. Every event that he had, well, maybe not every event, but a lot of events that he has, he'll like either have like his staff buy out more seats than people are actually buying, or like he'll find some way to make it look like there's more people there than there are really there. Because he's either him or his staff is so afraid of him and his campaign looking bad and looking like people aren't showing up.
That's so fun.
Yeah, that's just the kind of guy Donald Trump is. And low-key, I mean, as a content creator,
I'm here for it.
Yeah.
We're going to do a live show one day, maybe, hopefully, when we blow up, so I don't have to get a real job.
And we'll have him there.
And I'll be buying out tickets to make it look like it's a sold out show. And then I'll be going on Ticketmaster and I'll be scalping those tickets for like $95,000.
Dog, that shit was crazy. That shit was crazy. Like the Taylor Swift, the Swifties, I'm so sorry for y'all.
The Swifties are becoming anti-capitalist now.
Yeah.
No, I mean, actually, they're turning on it. Did you see the vinyl drama too?
I didn't.
I've become educated. Sorry for the side note. I've become educated on like vinyl production over the past like week because after the ticket, she's releasing her album on vinyl. However, you have to get 4 vinyls to be able to get like the full album art. And because she has such high demand as an artist, being like one of the like top 20 artists on Spotify or some shit like that, one of the most popular people in the fucking world, most popular musicians ever.
Right.
There's immense demand for like any of her vinyls because vinyl's like trendy right now too.
Yeah.
And so it's been pushing a lot of like indie bands and smaller bands and like just anyone who's smaller than Taylor Swift,
which is most people,
which is everyone, everyone except like Drake.
Well, I was gonna say Kanye, but bro's anti-Semitic now, so maybe he's not.
But anyway, so
Taylor got a revenge. That's all I'm saying.
They can't produce like vinyls anymore, and she's bleeding these like factories dry because there's already such like a small demand for it anyway. So they're just overworked and underpaid producing her vinyls.
That's awesome.
And now the Ticketmaster thing, and people are like, "Oh, Taylor doesn't have a hand in it." She absolutely has a hand in it. She's making money off of that. Ticketmaster has no reason to bundle vinyl sales with their ticket sales unless there's something in the background going through. You know,
is that what pumped up the price of all the tickets on Ticketmaster?
Ticketmaster's a monopoly.
Yeah.
AOC was posting about it earlier about how we should trust bust Ticketmaster. Fully agree.
Oh yeah,
fully agree. Concert tickets way too fucking expensive. Like no matter what. Anyway, but yeah, Ticketmaster, they were already doing. I forgot what the technical term is, but it's where you can dynamic pricing.
Okay.
Dynamic ticket pricing, where like pit tickets are higher than nosebleed tickets.
Right.
And artists can opt out of that if they want to. An artist can choose not to have dynamic pricing, so that's already factoring into it. The fact that it's Taylor Swift and everybody wants these fucking tickets is factoring into it, and so the price is just fucking skyrocketed, and now people are listing them for tens of thousands of dollars.
Yeah, I just remember seeing on Twitter like a week ago or whenever this started off, people were screenshotting it and being like, "Why are Taylor Swift tickets $11,000?"
Yeah,
and I'm just like, "What the fuck?" Like, that's crazy.
No, that's nuts.
That's nonsense.
Because it's not even going to be as good as the JID and Smino tour.
Well, it
hot
isn't.
Take.
It isn't.
Take.
And
it isn't.
Hot take. Like nothing is worth. Like no entertainment venue is worth $11,000 unless we do a live show one day.
No, real.
Then every seat's gonna be like $11,000.
When we do a live show at the Little Caesars Arena, you're gonna be paying $11,000 to sit in the little nosebleeds where you can't even like stand without feeling like you're gonna fall over.
Yeah, unless you were a patron starting now. Otherwise, then we'll take you into special consideration.
Yeah, but if you don't get in on that into the program,
if you don't get on it now, then like I can't help you. You know what I mean? Like I'm warning you now. You have your warning. Don't be a lazy leftist.
Exactly.
That's all I have to say.
This still ties into the show, right? Because if you have any relatives, any cousins, any sisters, anybody, I like Taylor Swift. That's a Swiftie.
Okay.
And they're like maybe more liberal, or let's be real, maybe some conservatives. Then you can kind of maybe use this to push them radicalize them a little bit.
You know what's funny? A lot of people, like they have their stories about how they arrived to like leftist ideology and stuff like that, and like we certainly do as well. It's gonna be funny to see like at least a couple million people say that they became leftists because of Taylor Swift, because of like the Ticketmaster debacle. Like I couldn't get tickets, now I hate capitalism.
They're gonna sit there and they're like, God damn, I work so hard at my fucking job. I work 40, 50, maybe 60 hours a week, even slaving.
I'm a loyal fan to Taylor Swift.
I live in like, I don't know, North Carolina, and I'm making $7.25 for my minimum wage, and I just wanted to, my budget was like $500 for these Taylor Swift tickets because I just love her so much. She's my favorite artist. She's helped me through so much.
One of the few things that brings me joy is I get crushed by my work.
The only thing that brings me joy is I'm sitting there day in, day out doing back-breaking work at my minimum wage job was to get these Taylor Swift tickets.
Taylor Swift got me through the death of my mother.
And then Ticketmaster is scalpers are trying to charge me $30,000 to get a ticket to see her in the middle of, I don't know, fucking buttfuck Egypt.
Just in the I love that. I'm gonna love to see that in a few years. People's story on TikTok is gonna be like, well, yeah, I became radicalized because I couldn't go to Taylor Swift.
Facts, and you can help usher that along if you have any Taylor Swift super fans.
Exactly.
In your relatives. Hot take, probably my hottest take to go with the theme of the review. New album, kind of mid.
Oof. Yeah, that's gonna piss some people off.
Kind of mid. Red on top. That's all I gotta say.
Getting back to Donald Trump here. Again, he had his re-announcement, a re-election announcement bid that he popped off with about a week ago now, and he said some wild things that I wanted to go through. Because, he was doing his thing. He was giving a stump speech.
He didn't say some wild
things. I think for the most part, he was reading off of a teleprompter, which I think holds him back a little bit.
Oh, absolutely.
As like a guy, you know what I mean? Because it's like, how do you write a speech for that dude?
He can read off a teleprompter. Nobody bats an eye. But the moment Joe Biden or John Fetterman reads a teleprompter, then it's just, when does John Fetterman end and the cyborg begin?
Anyway, getting into some of the wild things Donald Trump said pretty early on in the speech, he says that the war in Ukraine wouldn't have happened under him.
Nice.
And that Biden is leading us straight to nuclear war. And I love this take, and I put it in here specifically.
I'd have just let Putin have Ukraine.
No, because like that's where this logical thread leads, right? Is like, first of all, I already disagree with this idea, this American-centric idea that there's anything an American leader, a president, could have done to prevent a war that happens in another country. It stems from this idea that we have control over literally everything. And while this might be true to some extent, that we have our fingers in a lot of different places, because we have like 800 bases around the world and like every continent on the planet, it doesn't mean that we can prevent every single conflict from happening.
Especially when the two people in the conflict are people we didn't really have close ties to before.
Yeah, I mean, like, the U.S. has meddled in Ukraine, right?
Yeah.
Like throughout Ukraine's history, especially like the last few decades, the U.S. has meddled in Ukraine. We've obviously meddled with the affairs of Russia in the past.
For sure.
But again, like, it doesn't mean that we could have stopped the conflict from happening now. It doesn't mean that Donald Trump could have stopped the conflict from happening now. And even if we do say that Trump could have stopped it, it would have been because, like, Putin gets everything he wants anyways when Trump is in power. Because Trump was fully just on board with what Putin was doing. I'm pretty sure he called him a friend like multiple times. No one was afraid of Trump.
Trump was fully on board with any bad thing that happened overseas. When an American journalist was killed by a Saudi prince, he said, well, it's bad for business to do anything. So
because he wanted oil.
Like, that's not even conjecture. Like, he said that on an interview on like CNN. He said, I can't. The business would be too bad.
Yeah, I mean, and there's like always the accusations of him writing like love letters to Kim Jong-un, or there's him being close with like President Xi in China. Like, yeah, he's close to authoritarians. That's the kind of guy he is.
Yeah.
And for him to say that, oh, well, the war in Ukraine wouldn't have happened otherwise, or we wouldn't be this close to nuclear war if I was still in power, it's counterfactual. You can't prove it. And also, the only reason it wouldn't be happening is because Putin gets anything he wants anyway.
Exactly.
It's just a silly thing to say. But of course, I mean, this is something he can say because he isn't in power and it didn't happen under him, so he can just lie and make stuff up.
I love lying.
Classic Donald Trump. Donald Trump. He also went on to say, I thought this was a really weird thing to point out.
Okay.
He said, we have had no Islamic terrorist attacks, or we had no Islamic terrorist attacks during the Trump administration.
Have we had any Islamic terrorist attacks in the past 2 years?
No.
Have we had any Islamic terrorist attacks, I don't know, in the Obama administration?
The only thing I could think of would be like, wasn't the Boston bomber? Wasn't that a terrorist attack, Islamic terror, like connected to an Islamic State somewhere?
I guess. I have no fucking idea.
And I think this one might be wrong, so don't quote me on this. Might need to look this one up. But I think the Orlando shooting, the Pulse nightclub, I think that was a white guy connected. It might have been. I don't know.
You see, crazy, because I would be right to assume that it's a white guy, because most of the terror attacks we've had in this country have been by fucking white guys.
That's exactly what I was going to say, is like, bro just does not count how many white supremacist terrorist attacks there were under his administration. Like, Charlottesville immediately comes to mind, obviously.
Any of the mass shootings that happened under him.
Or like at mosques, like firebombing mosques that happened in his administration. Or like, this obviously wasn't under Donald Trump, but we had the Buffalo shooting. Was that this year? Over the summer in New York. He just doesn't count the actual terrorist attacks that are happening, but he zeroes in on Islamic terrorist attacks because that's what he can fearmonger on, and his base has never really liked Muslim people. I mean, since the beginning, he's like, we need a Muslim ban. He did the Muslim ban.
Real.
Yeah. Not great. And then he said, this was massive cope. Bro just straight up took the vial, took the syringe, and injected himself
crying,
with coke on
whining,
stage.
seething.
He said, in 2020, I received the most votes of any sitting president in history.
Nice. That's crazy, because Joe Biden received more than you. You're going to let a guy who CNN just posted today is an octogenarian because he just turned 80. 80, the first 80, one to fucking be in the office. You're going to let that guy with dementia beat you?
Yeah.
I don't know, dog.
Like, that's crazy that we can put up an actual just bag of flesh and bones, and that beats Donald Trump in 2020. Like, that's crazy.
An absolute charisma suck.
He had less followers on Twitter.
Oh,
how could he have won?
Okay. I don't understand. I bet Donald Trump will have more followers than Joe Biden on Twitter.
It's just like, yeah, Doug, there was a record number of people voting, maybe not like proportionally to the population record of all time, but like there was a record number of people voting in the 2020 election, and more of them voted for Joe Biden. So you still lost the election. It's a lot of cope. It's a lot of cope. He then went on to say that the socialist Green New Deal is destroying our country.
Nice.
The Green New Deal never passed.
Nice.
So if I put this in here because I hear this sometimes, not really from like regular people, but a lot of the time from like media people saying like, oh, the Green New Deal is destroying the country. The Green New Deal caused the power outage in Texas or the grid failure in Texas. It's like the Green New Deal didn't pass, and it certainly is not in place in Texas.
No, absolutely. In these conservative places that are failing.
Yeah, exactly. And then he said on immigration, this was just a case of him just like making some shit up.
Nice.
He said, I believe it's 10 million people coming in, not 3 or 4 million.
I believe it's 100 million.
I don't believe anyone's coming in. How about that?
Real.
Bro's just making up numbers. And then the craziest take he's had, which I don't even think this is a new Trump take. I just think he reiterated it at his re-election announcement. He said, every drug dealer should get the death penalty.
That shit is foul.
That's his take.
Fucking insane.
And it's like, first of all, we don't really even need to entertain this, but if someone brings it up at the dinner table, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Killing drug dealers isn't going to stop drug dealing. I don't think that's controversial to say. I don't think the death penalty stops any amount of crime anytime we've had the death penalty in place. Also, people often, they don't deal drugs because it's like a desirable business venture. People do it because they don't really have any other option, or they've deemed other options to be unviable and unworkable.
Because they want to make money.
Yeah.
That's really it. Are you going to execute every high schooler who sells weed on the side?
Yeah.
Like, come on.
Right. And it's like we've cracked down on drugs before in this country, and that didn't work. Right. It didn't stop drug dealing. It didn't stop drug use. In fact, it probably made it worse in many cases. We've seen other countries like the Philippines and Duterte crack down really hard on drug dealers and like execute drug dealers. That doesn't stop drug trafficking into that country. It doesn't work like that. And it's like, what's the actual plan here? Because like to stop drugs and drug use and drug dealing, you got to not treat it as a crime and treat it more as an addiction for people to use drugs, and you got to regulate them. And the only way you can regulate them is by decriminalizing them.
I think it's so wild that we've escalated to the point where politicians are just campaigning on killing people.
Yeah, not very pro-life of you, big dog. And it's like drug dealing is a nonviolent offense, and some people will make the argument that it's like, well, if you're dealing drugs and causing people to die from overdoses, then that's a violent offense. Like you're killing those people. But
it's like not every drug dealer is slanging hard drugs. Like I'm sorry, they're dishing out like weed, and they're selling a dime bag.
And it's like even theoretically, do you think that a drug dealer wants to kill off their customer base?
Real.
That seems kind of silly.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's really the goal here. People are dealing drugs because they're in a spot where they need to make money.
Are you going to execute every fucking white guy in Alpha Sigma Pi who sells coke?
Right.
Come on.
No,
you're not.
No.
You're not.
Yeah, that's the other thing is that like this would disproportionately just kill black people.
That's why. That's why they can say it and get away with it. Like, because that's really what they mean here is like, you're not executing the white frat guys who are selling coke.
Yeah.
You're not executing the suburban high schooler who sells weed to his friends. You're talking about the people in desperate communities, in black and brown communities who are doing it to get by.
No, yeah, exactly. And to even take that further, it's like, what is considered a drug dealer that harms people? Because I know you're not going to go after fucking Eli Lilly and execute the CEOs.
Are you going to execute the Sacklers?
Right, exactly. Because like if you enforced this, if this policy applied to everyone that deal drugs, they'd be fucked. Like they would be first on the chopping block. But I know you're not going after them.
Are you going to execute the doctors that have overprescribed opioids?
Yeah, exactly. You're going to prosecute the doctors who are you going to prosecute like the big pharma companies that have pushed for their products to be prescribed to more and more people, and that get them addicted to opiates.
Yeah,
and that eventually lead to them overdosing on unsafe drugs. Like you're not going to do that.
They always want to talk about the opioid crisis, but only mention fentanyl.
Well, and they always want to talk about the opioid crisis in terms of how it's hurt white people.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if you all have ever noticed that, but anytime like Tucker Carlson brings it up, like I've heard him bring up the opioid crisis before, and I'm like, oh shit, is he about to like actually make sense for once? And then he just talks about how it's hurt white people.
Yeah.
And it's never about like the broader implications or how it's caused by capitalism as a system. It's just white people.
And then it's still drugs are bad.
Yeah.
Unless you're an old white guy who got addicted to Vicodin because of your surgery, then I guess you're okay sometimes.
Unless you, what was his shit? Like you need to take Viagra to cure COVID or something? That was the Tucker
oh my
Carlson
God,
take
yeah.
from
He
months
did have
and months
that.
ago. What a great take. I miss that guy. Anyway.
Yeah, avid Viagra abuser.
Yeah. Trump also went on to say, I think you'll like this one especially.
Okay.
He said, we will rehire every member of the military that was fired because of COVID policies with full back pay.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. So they just get to work for nothing and get all that pay?
Yeah.
What's going on here, huh?
I love this take. I think it's really fun. It's just really playing on the conservative narrative there that like millions and millions of people lost their jobs because they didn't want to get vaccinated.
Do people still care? Do conservatives still like care about that? Does the
I don't
broader
know.
voting base really care about that? Because I honestly, everyone forgot about COVID. I don't really see anything about COVID anymore. And I feel like I'm pretty plugged in.
Yeah.
Especially because I spend my time on MAGA Twitter.
I mean, I think that's just how we can tell that it was just another culture war item, that it wasn't something that they actually care about. Because you'll notice in a lot of like leftist platforms or just things that we care about, we're talking about these things all the time, right? Like decriminalizing drugs or fighting for free housing or fighting for free healthcare. Like these are things we repeatedly bring up.
I'm always talking about crime and why I like it.
We always make it a point to say like crime is good, right?
Yeah.
Like it's always a part of our ideology. But for them, it's just something else to bring up to get mad about.
No facts.
And I don't think they really care about it.
They don't really support anything, unlike me, who supports cool crimes, unironically.
Uh-huh.
Go do graffiti.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm not kidding.
He also said he had a based moment. He had a moment of lucidity. He said that he wants to ban lobbying for former members of Congress and put a ban on members trading stock while they're in office.
That's hard.
Yeah.
I like how he's just like stealing that flow, though.
Well, yeah, he is stealing that flow specifically because Democrats haven't been able to do it.
Yeah, and they're kind of dodging it. They're kind of pussyfooting around the question, which is what they always do.
Because Nancy Pelosi at first came out against it. Also, thank you, gracious Speaker Nancy Pelosi, for all of your service. You'll be remembered dearly.
That's right.
She's stepping down.
When I texted fire Pelosi to Kevin McCarthy, it worked.
It did
I fired
work.
Pelosi.
You fired, but he said that during the speech as well. He's like, we fired Pelosi. He claimed a victory for that. But yeah, I love how Trump he can bring up something that like everyone agrees with, and he can run on this because he's trying to be, again, the anti-elitist, drain the swamp kind of guy. Like that's the angle he wants to take. And it's like, yeah, you can bring up popular stuff like this and then never actually go through with doing it, or he might be able to push for it while he's in office because that doesn't impact him.
Real. He's
not a member of Congress if he wins the presidency. He's the president.
That shit would be hard.
Exactly.
I'd fuck with that.
Exactly. And if Donald Trump got that done, if he was the one to get that done, I would support it.
I would support it. I'd be mad about it. I'd be mad because it's him, but I'd support it.
Unequivocally, it would be a good thing. Yeah. And then at the very end, he shouted out his son, Eric Trump. Because his son, Eric Trump, was the only one that was there out of his family.
Don Jr. didn't show up?
No, Don Jr. wasn't there either.
I wonder what's going on, because he's always on his dick.
That's what I was thinking. Don Jr. was not there, though. I don't know if there's a reason for that. But yeah, Ivanka wasn't there for reasons we talked about. Jared Kushner wasn't there because he's a Fed, probably working with the FBI.
Yeah.
And
he was probably in the back room, like listening with like the tapes in like a van, in like a white van parked outside.
Eric Trump was the only one there, and he got a shout out. You never hear an Eric Trump shout out.
No, you never hear anything about Eric Trump. I honestly forget that he's one of the Trumps.
He's the ugliest one, other than Donald, of course. And it's like nobody cares about him. Because he's Eric Trump. Like, nobody loves him.
I'm shocked that Don wasn't there. His tweets are borderline incestuous.
Oh, yeah.
Like, the way that he's just always like when on his father's cock.
When people were doing the Halloween trend thing, where they'd post, like, Halloween costumes from, like, Spirit Halloween or whatever, and it was, like, sexy president. And it was
yes! No, like, dog, that's your father. That's your father.
Or when he was saying some shit about, like, his dad's dick being large. It was like, bro, chill.
My dad doesn't need a Viagra.
Exactly. He was saying like what was it? I think it was something Chuck Schumer said about like Donald Trump stole the election, but then he said like stole the erection or some shit like that. It was like a typo on Twitter or something.
He said, "Oh, he doesn't need to steal any erections. You see, my father has a lot of erections on his own, and they are long and they are hard.
I've seen it. Damn it, I've seen it.
God damn it, I have seen it.
And I will not let you speak ill on his name.
I put that on my children. If I'm lying, God may murder my firstborn right now."
Exactly. So Trump's re-election argument is basically that, everything was great before COVID. That was one of the big things he talked about. Like before COVID, the economy was excellent. And then, of course, our border is completely open. There's millions of immigrants coming in that are coming to he didn't really say this in the speech, but he said before, they're coming to steal your jobs, kill your family, rape your mothers and daughters. Like,
now we have more fentanyl in this country than we do people.
Yeah, exactly. Even though we have more guns in this country than we do people. And that doesn't seem to be an issue. But the thing here is like, do people really believe that it was that great before COVID? And great for who? And can anyone really remember the time before COVID at this point? Like in the context of being past COVID, or I guess still during COVID, but like we're out of we're kind of, for the most part, out of the economic downturn that COVID caused.
Yeah.
Like, can anyone really think about that? Does anyone really want to think about that? Because this was a narrative that some Republicans ran on, like pre-COVID, we had the greatest economy, let's get back to that. And it doesn't really seem like that resonated with anybody.
Yeah, maybe it's because I am young. Like, unironically, maybe this one's just because I am young, but it's kind of just hard to remember what things were like pre-COVID, because that was the first semester of freshman year of
2019,
college
right?
and high school.
2019, yeah.
Like, I wasn't worried about jack shit.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, I don't know who really believes that the economy was that great before COVID, and I don't know who the economy was great for. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because like when Trump first got into office in 2017, he did massive tax cuts for the rich, and he did some tax cuts for the middle class that are now sunsetting, by the way.
Yeah.
So your taxes are going to go back up.
That's honestly it, though. It's the Trump tax cuts, because that's what he tried to run on in 2020.
And it's like, yeah, a common retort you'll hear, or a common argument you'll hear from Trump or his allies is that like Trump created the best economy. And it was like, yeah, off of Obama's coattails, if you can even call it the best economy. And then you did massive tax cuts for the rich that harmed the state's ability to actually pay for things. And then you did tax cuts for the middle class, but the tax cuts that are going to sunset that people won't have access to anymore.
And then he had like a $3 trillion budget deficit.
Yeah.
Added the highest budget deficit like ever.
And that's even if
before COVID.
And that's even if we concede the argument that we're talking about, like before COVID.
Yeah.
Because once COVID hit, he didn't fucking handle it for shit.
No.
He just let it all fall apart. He didn't take any real measures to prevent the spread of COVID. And he let his entire base come out against like wearing masks.
We had 4% of the population, but what, 20% of the COVID deaths?
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah. And it's like he doesn't, it really just seemed like during his speech, he didn't have the charisma like normal. And again, maybe it's because he's reading from a teleprompter, but he just seemed like slow, even on 2x speed and uninspired. And like he didn't want to be there. And people in the room felt like they didn't want to be there. It's just like, I don't know if he can take the anti-elitist drain the swamp angle again, because he was in the swamp.
That's
and if the swamp still exists after he's gone, like what was it all for?
I really hope he does this run. He tries and puts his heart into it, but he just can't do it, and he crashes and burns, and he takes Ron DeSantis with him.
Well, yeah, and that's the hope, and that's the question now is like, can DeSantis beat him? Can he beat DeSantis? And it's like, in a crowded field, Donald Trump probably wins that again.
Yeah.
Like if you've got people like Kristi Noem or Mike Pompeo or like fucking Ted Cruz running again, like if it's a bunch of people like it was in 2016, like 14 or however many candidates, then Trump wins a plurality in a bunch of states, and he, takes the primary in 2024. And I don't know if DeSantis can beat him in that environment. If it's one-on-one, I don't know. That's a bit harder to determine, but who knows?
My ideal situation would be they both take each other down, and somebody like Ben Carson has to run again.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, or Rick Scott from Florida.
Or we get a Jeb Bush presidency finally.
Facts. You know what? If you all go and vote in your conservative primaries for 2024 for just like Ben Carson, you'd be putting in work.
Well, it's like, because if Joe Biden doesn't have a competitor, might have to. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
might have to play spoiler. What's the point?
If Joe Biden is running again, I might actually have to go and put in 100,000 ballots somewhere.
Hey, that's all I'm saying. And the thing, another critique that some people have made that I've noticed, that I guess I'm a little bit late to the game, but like every issue in the GOP now is about Donald Trump.
Yeah.
Like immigration, that's Donald Trump's issue. Build the wall. Election integrity, it's all Donald Trump, the big lie. Like everything else is Donald Trump's issue, except for maybe like abortion. But even then, abortion's a losing issue for conservatives.
It's like,
what do you have to run on that isn't directly related to Donald Trump? And if you believe Donald Trump actually won the 2020 election and it was stolen from him, how is he not the rightful nominee for the 2024 election?
Yeah.
I don't know how they get around that.
Bro did what he did, like with his businesses, and just like took a stake and put his name on it. It's the Trump stake now. All of these issues he just attached his name to, and that's the only thing he really has going for him.
And now earlier in this, I mentioned that there was a cheat code that you might be able to use.
Yes.
So if you're at the dinner table and someone's saying like, "Oh, I'm so excited that Donald Trump is running again, greatest president of all time," maybe to play spoiler, you take the I'd vote for Trump over DeSantis angle. Oh, because we got to spoil it. You know what I mean? Like that is our goal now, is to pull the Republican Party into two halves. The media establishment, the GOP establishment that wants DeSantis, and then everybody else that wants Donald Trump, and then they can just fight amongst each other and implode so that neither of them can win.
We're gonna start a think tank called like the Foundation for Traditionalism and Regalty, and just start like pumping all the Patreon money into ads being pro DeSantis.
We are going to become a dark money group
to try and like split the two and fracture the party, so that God forbid if Joe Biden runs again, he can take the dub.
We're going to do what the DCCC did.
Absolutely.
Like I know we shit on it a couple of months ago, but turns out it works, so we're doing it.
It worked once, and we're taking that and we're running with it.
Yeah, exactly. Of course, Trump, in his speech, he hit the election theft drum. Still no evidence of this, of course. He still isn't able to present any evidence of this. But what I did think was interesting is that Kari Lake lost her governor's race in Arizona, and that was one of the ones that we were still waiting on. So she lost. Katie Hobbs won. Very good news. Kari Lake is a QAnoner, neo-Nazi, etc. But she's trying to do the Trump thing where she denies the election results. She said that she's challenging it. She's not conceding.
Oh, she is fully doing the Trump thing. She started the Kari Lake War Room Twitter, where she's just posting just unhinged stuff about like ballots being cured. It's like, dog, you asked for that as well, though.
Yeah,
like, you also asked for ballots to be cured.
And it's like, like she's been requesting that Arizona voters send in like testimony of things they saw on election day or like their ballots being denied, etc. And it's like she just can't handle that she lost. I don't know if she's able to pull that off on a state level versus Trump doing it on a national level. Trump also didn't pull it off, by the way.
Did anyone care about Kari Lake?
Exactly.
Did anyone like her beforehand?
Like, I've seen some conservatives chime in and say, like, oh, things are looking suspicious in Arizona. They're really taking it from Kari Lake. But it doesn't seem like there's any concerted effort to actually get her to win despite her losing.
Especially when it's the conservatives who are the ones getting in actual legal trouble for doing voter intimidation.
Right, exactly. Or Blake Masters posting, like, can't wait till tomorrow. And he's got a shotgun in his hand. Like,
posting a fucking just shooting his gun with no music. And that's it. That's the post.
Yeah. Isn't this really cool? Speaking of legal trouble, though, this does segue me into the next section, which is all about Hunter Biden.
Let's go.
So one side effect of the Republicans being able to take the House, and they did take the House, by the way. It looks like they're going to have about like 220 votes, 219, somewhere in there.
I think Lauren Boebert did win.
Yeah, Lauren Boebert. It looks like she won. I don't know if the AP's called it.
I don't know if it's been like officially called, but it looks pretty official that she's won.
Yeah.
Sad times. It was very close, though.
We very, very well could have lived in a world where the House majority came down to Lauren Boebert's seat. And that would have been a world that I would love to be in right now.
And she could have lost, and I could have made fun of her.
If I ever learn how to travel to parallel timelines, I'm out of here. That's all I'm saying. Because it's close by.
It's gone.
It's definitely close by. But one side effect of the Republicans being able to win the House is they can launch investigations now.
Let's
go. They will control the, I don't know if it's Judiciary Committee or, whatever investigative arm of the House exists. They will be in control of that now.
Oh, fuck yeah. You know what? Maybe this is the best outcome.
That's what I was thinking. Now, it's going to be tougher for them to do things like impeachments because impeachments are a lot bigger of a deal and Democrats control the Senate, which is the other half of impeachment. So it wouldn't be as fun for them to do an impeachment, but they can launch investigations into basically anything they want.
That's so fucking cool.
Which means that an investigation into Hunter Biden is not only available, but is definitely gonna happen.
Oh
They're already tweeting like you had.
I'm gonna cream.
First of all,
my tip sticky. That's so fun.
The House Judiciary Committee or the GOP Judiciary Committee, like Twitter, is unhinged.
Oh, they're vile.
They be tweeting like they're just some regular fucking guy. Like, you are.
They tweet like they're a man who works like industrial job on like a factory line, right, in the Rust Belt.
Yeah, that's how they tweet. They tweet like they're in game chat of like Modern Warfare 2. Like that's like they're just out here. Like you are a well-established. You're part of a political party.
Yeah.
Within the House of Representatives. Like, what are you doing?
An organized body.
Yeah.
For the state.
Yeah. Anyway, the GOP Judiciary Twitter was basically saying like, we're going to investigate the laptop or like Hunter Biden's laptop exists or something like that. So that's definitely going to happen. And if you see this at the dinner table, my advice honestly is just to be like, all right, yeah, bet.
Sick.
Because Hunter Biden is probably a criminal to some extent.
Yeah.
But you could also say like, okay, well, let's investigate Donald Trump and his family as well because they committed a ton of crimes.
Like real shit. Why would I care that Hunter Biden gets investigated for doing illegal things?
Right.
I want to hear about the cool crimes he does.
Yeah.
I want to hear about like the drugs because that shit's fire.
Exactly.
And then I also want to hear about any illegal business dealings because that's bad. Like,
yeah. Yeah,
I'm anti-corruption. Of course, I would want that.
Right. And like, it's easy to get caught up in that because it's like this whole partisan thing of them investigating the president's son and stuff. But it's like, it's the president's son. I don't know that there's any connections to Joe Biden while he was the vice president. And if there is, then like, yeah, we should root that out. But the problem is that, of course, the GOP might be like, all right, yeah, let's go after Hunter Biden and find out what he did illegally. But then when it comes to Donald Trump, they won't do the same thing, right? Because they're doing it for partisan reasons. But you should want to do it because politicians do not deserve your praise.
And it's like the bigger thing is that the story was big during the election. It's like, yeah, but there wasn't like concrete evidence.
Yeah.
Like it's still just really kind of conjecture about this laptop that's going around. And then Project Veritas, which why would you trust Project Veritas?
Yeah. It's always been like, yeah, this like blind shop owner had Hunter Biden's laptop because Hunter Biden turned it into him to like get fixed and Rudy Giuliani found it or some shit. And it's like, and nothing makes any sense in their storyline at all. It's not even a fun storyline. It's just like a fucking laptop.
No, it's not. The only fun thing that's come out of it is like the propaganda they've made.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I hope they do it, to be honest.
The revenge porn that they've posted.
That might be, because like they're not going to pass anything that's like good. You know what I mean? No. So this might be the funnest thing that they do. The funniest and funniest.
Most likely nothing good will happen for the next 2 years out of the Senate. They'll just continue to not do their job, which isn't something I can do.
Yeah.
If I just don't do my assignments, my lab report, my term papers, and try to go on a month-long vacation, I wouldn't fly.
You're fucked, right?
I'd get kicked out of university.
Exactly.
I'd fail my class. But the senators get to just keep their jobs?
And after doing nothing.
Ridiculous.
And they can trade stocks?
Yeah.
What's up with that?
Yeah.
What's up with that? But I think moving on to our next one.
Okay.
Talking about immigration specifically.
Oh, that's a big one.
It was a big topic that Trump hit on was immigration, of course. You know, it's always been his issue. And this will be the focal point of a Trump campaign or a DeSantis campaign because, you know, DeSantis likes to human traffic.
Because Florida's a border state.
Because Florida's a border state, of course. So immigration, of course, is going to be a big issue. Obviously, our take here is that there's no crisis at the border. There's no evidence that there's a crisis at the border. And even if we did, say, have 10 million people coming in, like Trump claimed earlier, then, like, that's only ever been good for the economy is having people come in to the country.
Yeah.
Because illegal immigrants, right, if they are coming into the country, they're undocumented. They don't have access to the same federal benefits that a regular citizen would, but they're still like taxed on their income. And they still, if they're not being taxed on their income, are probably being underpaid, under the table, and still stimulating the economy with their labor.
The only thing they do is put into the system without being able to take out of it.
Exactly.
And you should know that unless you live in Ohio and had to vote for them to not be able to vote.
Right.
Which is something they couldn't do already.
Yeah.
But immigration is just crazy because they're just ramping it up. Like, this might be the big thing. Did you see what Greg Abbott did?
No, I did not.
Greg Abbott invoked the invasion clause of the U.S. and Texas constitutions to fully authorize Texas. Yeah, fully authorize Texas to take unprecedented measures to defend our state against an invasion. I'm using that constitutional authority and other authorizations and executive orders to keep our state and country safe. He's going to deploy the National Guard to safeguard our border.
They're just going to kill people? Like,
literally.
Oh my God.
Deploy the National Guard to safeguard our border and to repel and turn back immigrants trying to cross the border illegally. Deploy the Texas Department of Public Safety to arrest and return the border immigrants who crossed illegally, and deploy DPS to arrest illegal immigrants for criminal activity. You can already arrest people for criminal activity.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Build a border wall in multiple counties on the border and deploy gunboats to secure the border.
Gunboats?
That's crazy. What is this, war zone?
Yeah, what do you need a gunboat for?
What the fuck?
Dog, that's fucking insane. Like, just like logically for a second, think about what an invasion justifies, right?
Yeah.
If you're a country under invasion, then that justifies a sort of military response. And that's exactly what people like Greg Abbott and Donald Trump and any other Republican, or I guess, you know, your Uncle Terry at the dinner table, that's all what they're looking for. And there's no real reason because, like, sure, there might be drugs trafficked over the border, but that doesn't mean that you can use a military against every abuela that's trying to come into the United States because they have family here.
That doesn't mean you can use a gunboat to fucking stop all the abuelas walking through carrying their grandchildren with them because they want a better life.
Right.
That doesn't mean you can use a gunboat to turn back asylum seekers.
And it's like, that is such a massive waste of taxpayer money.
Oh, yeah.
Like, think about how many millions of dollars you want to spend on that.
You want to talk about a drain on the system.
Uh-huh.
Oh my God.
It's used fighting a war that doesn't exist, fighting a war against poor people that are fleeing from countries that the United States has intervened in and caused massive economic damage, using taxpayer money to just, annihilate those people?
Yeah.
Throw them into what is basically a concentration camp for like the next, I don't know, however many years away from their family?
I have to wonder, how do people who actually live on the border in Texas feel about this?
Right.
Because as we covered last week, Greg Abbott, did he lose border counties?
Yeah, it seemed like Beto O'Rourke did actually kind of well along the southern border of Texas, although, of course, Texas is a pretty red state in general, so it wasn't anything, like, huge. Like, the victories weren't huge, but a lot of the counties along the border were blue or trending blue, more so than normal.
Crazy.
Right.
Amidst all this rhetoric, like, I wonder what they think of something like this. Do they feel like they're under invasion? Do the people actually living on the border feel like they're under invasion? I doubt it.
And would they feel like they're under invasion, lacking the Republican propaganda that, there's 10 million people coming over the border.
Yeah.
I wouldn't think so.
The only people that feel like they're under an invasion, under a pressing threat of immigrants are conservatives living in Houston.
I was going to say white moms
living
in Pennsylvania.
in Florida, white moms in Pennsylvania, a border state, mind you.
Yeah.
And I don't know, people scattered across the country in non-border states.
Yeah, and it's like, that this rhetoric is absolutely toothless. And not toothless, but because it does cause real damage, but it's just, I don't know.
Posturing.
Fake. Yeah, it's posturing. Because you have people like representatives in Michigan. I'll see them tweet about how the crisis at the border is somehow bad for Michigan and we need to stop illegal immigration. We border Canada.
Yeah. Where actually more people come over illegally.
Yeah, exactly. It's like you're not making a fuss about Canadians coming over because they're white people. You don't care about them because they're white people.
I'm going to run for governor of Michigan, and then I'm going to invoke the invasion clause to stop all those people from Canada coming over.
Is that not just like a Texas? That's like a U.S. Constitution thing?
He said Texas and U.S. Constitution's invasion clauses, so I have no idea. Maybe we have one.
I think we should make one.
I hope so.
We should put something on the ballot for 2024.
What's a slur for Canadians?
Oh, facts. One of you let us know. We have a few Canadian listeners,
Facts.
I think.
Emma, I'm going to need you to hit our DMs and tell us what a slur for Canadians is.
I need a derogatory term for Canadians that you guys wouldn't like me using, but I use anyway because I mean to incite hate. You know what I mean?
Yeah, what do you not like to be called?
So of course, when it comes to immigration, they'll use things like the fear of gangs and cartels and drugs to justify making immigration harder for literally everybody else. Sure, there may be drugs coming across the border. There may be gang violence coming from countries south of the border into the United States. But that isn't justification for making life harder for the millions of people that might, or I don't even know if it's millions, however many number of people want to come here and seek asylum or just come here for economic opportunity or bring their family here for any other number of reason.
Yeah.
There's no reason to restrict their ability to come just because some very small minority of people might be bringing fentanyl into the United States.
Oh, yeah. Fentanyl. Another huge one this year, right? If anyone in your home tries to mention, if you touch fentanyl, you'll die, shut that shit down. Shut that shit down immediately. The only way for fentanyl to penetrate the skin is with a patch.
Exactly.
In higher concentrations. And it's already effective in very small concentrations. It has to be forced through the skin to feel anything from fentanyl. It's not happening. I'll go fucking swim in it. I'll be fine.
Exactly. And you can even prove it. Be like, I put fentanyl on the spoon handle and y'all are fine. Be like, y'all aren't feeling shit, are you?
I actually put fentanyl on your seats right now.
Exactly, and you're fine, you're fine, but you're complaining. You can get him with that one.
And then they'll have a fucking stroke, like that cop's wife.
For real. and then you're going to jail for life. That's the pro-crime message coming out of HITO, 4-letter organization.
That's right.
And also, when it comes to immigration, the last point I wanted to make here is that any conversation of immigration is completely insufficient without recognizing the complete and total destruction that the United States has caused in Latin American countries.
Yeah.
The amount of times that we have intervened or otherwise just destroyed the economy and political apparatus of Latin American countries is insane. Whether it's Guatemala or Nicaragua, Panama, Cuba, Haiti, the list goes on. There's so many countries that we just went in, wrecked shit, caused immense economic devastation, and then left. And now, however many decades later, people are still trying to flee to the United States for better economic opportunity, and we demonize those people, despite us being the reason that they had to immigrate in the first place.
If you do genuinely want to have a serious discussion about immigration, you just need to ask why they feel like people are coming across the border. And if their answer is to smuggle drugs and rape women, then there's a lot of unpacking that we need to do.
I don't know if you can do that in one Thanksgiving dinner.
That's going to take a couple Thanksgivings.
Yeah.
Not going to lie.
That's going to be a tough one to unpack.
That might be a losing issue.
I mean, the basic argument there, and really with every issue, is just human compassion. You know what I mean? Like not being completely malicious and having malice in your heart for other human beings. You know what I mean? It's these are people fleeing from, a possible political violence that they will acknowledge, cartel, gang violence that they'll acknowledge. These people are trying to get away with their family, with their children that have no other choice. And demonizing those people isn't right. But letting them into the country won't cause harm. In fact, it'll probably make the country better. And if conservatives think that America is so great, then why wouldn't they want to let immigrants in with open arms? Because then doesn't that prove their thesis that America is the best country in the world?
Why wouldn't they want people who think America's great to come here when they want us who think America's
exactly
to leave?
Right.
Come on.
You want Canadians coming in rather than
what the fuck?
Rather than people that will work hard,
Yeah,
Canadians don't work hard.
I wish I had that slur. I wish I had that slur ready.
No, for real. I would use it right now. But it's like Canadians get free healthcare. They don't work hard. They don't need to work hard.
Oh, yeah.
Their communist prime minister, Justin Trudeau, hands them literally everything. They don't have to work for it.
Oh, my God. I can't believe this.
I can't
believe those dirty fucking insert slur right here.
I hate the Canadian working class.
God.
They're the fucking worst. If we ever have an international proletariat, Canadians are excluded.
Irks me to my core.
Exactly.
All they do is ride America's shitty coattails and then go give their citizens health care.
Exactly. I want to take a hard pivot here.
Okay.
I want to talk about the alphabet mafia.
Oh.
Because that's a topic that may come up. That probably will come up because that's been one of the biggest narratives.
Honestly, that narrative kind of fell off.
Yeah.
Hot take. The anti-LGBTQ discourse fell off for the midterms.
Yeah.
That was more popping earlier this year, I would argue.
It really did peak during Pride Month too. You know what I'm saying?
I mean, that's always when it does.
It did really pop. It really did really peak during Pride Month. And this subject might be tough, especially if you yourself are LGBTQ and your family is critical of it. So don't feel like you have to engage.
Oh,
absolutely.
absolutely.
If it's gonna for some reason like make you personally feel uncomfortable.
You can always just sit there and think, God damn, I'm so much smarter than you. In your head.
Exactly.
And then laugh about that.
Exactly. But if you do want to engage in a little bit of blood sport and you do want to annihilate them, it's pretty easy to do it on this topic specifically. Because a huge narrative we've seen throughout the last year that may have petered off a little bit is that, trans people are somehow inherently groomers.
Yeah.
And while they've never explicitly said it like that, maybe they have, but while they don't usually explicitly say it like that, the implication is that like if you're a trans person, you're a groomer. If you're a trans teacher or someone in a position of authority that is trans, then you are therefore a groomer in grooming people that are below you, children, that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And it's not hard to blow up this argument because like it certainly isn't the case.
Oh, absolutely.
And I'm pretty sure like offense rates for like grooming children among trans people are probably not nearly as high as just like regular fucking white men.
Yeah.
But like the point here is that like there's just no evidence to suggest that that's the case, and it's just filled with hate.
And it's like when it does happen, they like to say, oh, it's because they're trans. Or it's just because they're a bad person who happens to be trans.
Right. That's possible too, yeah.
Let's be real here.
Yeah. No, like that's entirely possible. And you shouldn't shy away from if they bring up some kind of circumstance where there's like a teacher that is saying like, yes, you need to transition.
Then they're a bad person.
You shouldn't be saying that. But like in a country of 350 million people, you can find somebody that's gonna say anything to fit the narrative that you wanna push.
Yeah.
You can find anyone to fit your agenda. But the point is that there is no teacher, or there's not a vast majority of teachers. There's no plurality of teachers even that is pushing like trans ideology onto kids. Mm-hmm. For the most part, they're like, let's respect each other's pronouns, and if you want to be called a different name, I'll call you a different name.
Or it's even
that's
like
all it is.
If they just start to bring up shit like, well, it's not that they're like actually just out there individually grooming, but it's just that that's gay. It's not appropriate for kids to be exposed to that. What about these drag shows for kids?
Right.
What about LA Pride? I feel like all you need to do, as long as you don't live in California or LA, if you're living in like the Rust Belt like us, if you're out in Michigan, if you're in a flyover state, just have you ever seen a Pride parade?
Yeah. Yeah.
Just walk out. Have you ever had to be forced to watch a Pride parade? Have you ever even heard of a drag show for kids before that one story went viral?
It's like child beauty pageants are much weirder than drag shows, by the way.
Yeah.
Those are fucking weird.
It's
and you
like,
could argue that's grooming.
You don't have to deal with these issues, my guy. These are not issues you have to deal with because, one, they're not issues in the first place. Like, they happen in such like a minuscule amount that it's a non-issue. It's isolated incidents going on when things are genuinely inappropriate.
Right.
And just generally, you've never had to worry about this before. You know two gay people.
Yeah, exactly. And a common narrative that kind of still persists even today is that this whole idea that like children are receiving transition surgery, right?
Yeah.
Like that's the narrative that people like Matt Walsh push, or like, your Ben Shapiro's, they're transing kids is what they like to say. There's no evidence, there's no real evidence that this is happening in mass. And there's no real evidence that anywhere in the country that I know of that children are somehow receiving something like bottom surgery. It just doesn't happen. You might get like hormone replacement therapy. That's a thing that people, around 14, 15, 16 can start getting. But even that takes years to actually get on those kinds of medications. Mm-hmm. And the only way you can do that is by a trained physician deciding along with you that that is the next step that you should take.
Yeah.
It is. And by the way, when people do start to engage in these kinds of treatments, whether it be, later on in their life, they get some kind of surgery, or early on in their life, they're doing hormone replacement therapy, the regret rate I don't remember the actual term for that.
Oh, the detransitioner rate?
Yeah,
1%.
It's incredibly
less
low.
Than 1%.
It's incredibly low because we, as human beings, have studied and analyzed for decades now how to make these things safe and how to make it so people don't regret their choices, and we've gotten good at it.
Yeah.
And it's a marvel of science that we're even able to do it. And the only reason that conservatives that have no real connection to the LGBTQ community at all would bring this up is because they're just hateful. That's it.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, Ben Shapiro came on his fucking show the other day and said that if you're a principled conservative, if you're a conservative who is supportive of like the what's the act that just passed the Senate?
Respect for Marriage.
The Respect for Marriage Act. If you're in support of the Respect for Marriage Act, then you should be taken out of the Republican Party because you're not a principled conservative. You need to be opposed to gay marriage because it's all about the male-female dyad as the reproductive unit.
Like, using the word dyad is gotta be racist.
Dehumanizing.
Gotta be racist.
Yeah, no, fuck that. It's just, you're racist.
Somehow it's gotta be racist.
It's gonna flip around.
Yeah, I was gonna bring this up a bit later, but the Senate did vote to advance the Respect for Marriage Act, which again was the act that doesn't actually stop states from having laws that discriminate who can get married.
Yeah.
But it does allow the federal government to recognize couples that were married in states that allow it, same-sex couples that are, or in interracial couples, by the way, that are married in states
Mitch
that
McConnell
allow it.
is in an interracial marriage to a Chinese woman, yet he voted no.
Yeah, it functionally just unlocks benefits for interracial marriages and same-sex marriages, federal benefits that you now have access to, and it makes it so if you're married in a state where that's allowed, then you'll get access to those benefits.
Yeah, then gay couples can withdraw
want.
Social Security for their spouse now,
right?
Which is a thing they couldn't do before.
Right, it's things like Social Security, veterans benefits, health care, that kind of thing. Right, that's really all it does, and it's not good enough. Obviously, we should outlaw being able to discriminate who can get married based on sexuality or race or
based
any
on
other
anything
factor.
Pretty much.
Yeah, we should outlaw that entirely. I want it to go further, but generally it's a step in the right direction since previously marriage was defined federally as between a man and a woman, and that's stupid, right?
Yeah, very
That's
dumb.
really dumb. But a lot of right-wingers, they've been coming out saying like this is the downfall of Western hegemony or the downfall of Western culture.
Yeah.
How?
And it's like, I feel like with this one, while not as pressing of an issue as abortion was, I feel like they're going a little too hard on this one out of nowhere, and it's going to turn a lot of people off, just like the abortion issue.
Right.
Like, all of a sudden, they are going hard on hating gay people.
And it's like they're recycling arguments from like 2008.
Yeah. When, like, being gay is pretty fucking normal. Like, it's pretty normalized whether you like it or not. There's a lot of gay people. There's a lot of gay Republicans. Like, what does Ben Shapiro have to say about Dave Rubin? The guy who fucking works for him who's gay and married to a man.
They all hate him.
No, literally.
They all hate him.
Like you're coming on your show
because
millions of people and saying that they shouldn't get married, and then Dave Rubin's like, well, yeah, I just respect his ability to have that opinion.
Well, yeah, and it's like Dave Rubin himself like hates himself.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because I remember you brought this up on the show maybe a couple of months ago at this point.
I know what you're talking about.
Where he was like, it wouldn't be preferable to have a gay child.
Yeah.
Why?
He said,
like, you yourself are a gay man.
A viewer asked him, like, well, if you're really like a conservative, you should be like against it. What if you like had a gay kid? Would you not like that? And he's like, well, I wouldn't like that because I think it would be a little bit harder for a kid to be gay. Not that life shouldn't be hard or anything, because life should be hard. Like, he was coping the whole time because
they hate
it's incongruent with his whole thing. Like, Dave, the check can't be that good.
Exactly.
Come on to our team.
Now, please. And now, look, there's two arguments really that they try to pass off as somehow intellectualism in defense of not wanting gay people to get married.
Yeah.
Number one is that forcing states to marry gay people or forcing like any church or whatever to marry gay people is somehow an infringement on religious liberty.
Yeah.
Now, first of all, the Respect for Marriage Act does not do that. It explicitly says like states can still make their own laws, like they still respect state law. So if in a state like, I don't know, Texas, you don't want to marry gay people, then the federal government cannot force you to. But the argument in general that somehow it's an infringement on religious liberty is fucking stupid because your religious liberty doesn't get to discriminate against people. I don't know how they don't understand that. Like, yes, you have freedom. You have the ability to believe whatever you want. But if you control any type of institution, you don't get to discriminate against people.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous. Otherwise, what's stopping me from creating a religion that says like, oh, well, I hate black people.
Yeah, fuck you.
Exactly. And then I get in control of some institution that has resources that people need access to. Like, that's ridiculous. You don't get to discriminate. I feel like a general rule of thumb for society, you don't get to discriminate against people based on arbitrary characteristics that have nothing to do with who they are as a person. Pretty simple. But the second argument they'll advance, and this was the Ben Shapiro argument, and he was really trying to make this one work.
Okay.
Is that marriage is for procreation, and gay people cannot procreate. And in the face of failing or falling birth rates in a country like the United States, this is a bad move because the state has a vested interest in keeping the birth rate high. First of all, already kind of seems like eugenics.
Yeah, no, one, yeah. And two, it's like, okay, but I feel like just like the gay people aren't going to have kids anyway.
Right.
Like, what is stopping them from getting married due for birth rates?
Nothing.
Absolutely nothing. Like, the only proposed solution to that, wrong solution, mind you, is to force straight couples to fuck.
Yeah. Yeah. And, because it's like gay people, they're not going to marry regardless. They're still going to be gay.
You think they're going to say,
they're not going to have kids regardless.
I have a duty to my country. Yeah. Somebody find me a pussy.
Yeah, it's like this argument immediately falls apart under any amount of scrutiny because gay people are not going to have children. Like, they're not going to birth any children or, have any offspring of their own because they're gay. And the only thing that not allowing them to marry does is block them from getting federal benefits. And it's just another attempt to, I don't know, erase gay people from or prevent them from having access to an institution that everyone else has access to. It is just discrimination. It's just bigotry. And also, like, infertile people can marry.
Yeah.
And, like, marriage is not only for procreation. Like, that's not
marriage
the point.
And
he knows
you
that.
You want to take a next step in your relationship, or, hear me out, you marry a friend for tax benefits.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Like, it's not.
You marry a friend when you turn 23 to get free college. Real.
You got to do something.
Real.
Got to do something. But circling back around to the trans narrative,
to the alphabet mafia.
To the alphabet mafia, yeah. You might get a little trans women are not women at the dinner table.
Oh.
And if you do, that's a big one to bite off, right?
That's a real big one.
It's not a tough argument to push back against if they say trans women are not women because they themselves do not understand what gender or sex is, and they also don't know what a woman is if they try to ask you that.
Exactly.
So what I would recommend doing is you just ask them, okay, then what is a woman?
When someone gets on this like line of thinking, like the there's only two genders, trans women aren't women, trans men aren't men, you need to be the gadfly. You need to just ask why. Yeah. But why?
Yeah,
why?
Socratic method is literally like that's what you have to do here.
But why though?
Continuously ask why. And I tell you to ask them. I tell you to ask them what a woman is. Because they won't be able to give you an answer. They cannot construct a definition that will not eventually necessarily exclude someone that they consider a woman.
Yeah.
And what I mean by this is that they may say it's chromosomes, right? Like chromosomes determines if you are a man or a woman. If you're a man, you have XY. If you're a woman, you have XX. The problem there is that isn't a binary. There's some people that have just X chromosomes. Some people have 3 X chromosomes. Some women that have, or some people that have all the other characteristics that a woman would have has XY chromosomes.
Some people are XXY.
Exactly. Like there's so many different variations in genetics here in chromosomes that you can't really construct a good definition of sex and gender based off chromosomes. And you can say, well, okay, this person clearly looks like a woman to me, but she has 1 X chromosome.
Yeah.
So what do you do there? That definition immediately falls apart, and they can't include someone they would consider to be a woman. Or if you talk about gametes, some people don't produce gametes.
Yeah.
How can you characterize them based on something? How can you characterize them based on something they don't produce?
They always love to talk about like biology textbooks. There is no biology textbook that you will find, no respected biology, well-cited biology textbook on the face of this earth that is going around and saying the only 2 options are XX and XY.
It doesn't happen.
It doesn't. Like, that's not it.
And it's like they might even go as far to say like genitalia, right?
Yeah.
And it's like some people are born with ambiguous genitalia.
Some people are born with both.
Yeah. Some people. What if a man goes to war to fight for the United States, like to protect a poppy field, and he gets shot and he loses his meat? What then? Is he not a man anymore?
He gets shot right in the meat. He goes flying.
Does he cease to be a man after that? Of course not. They cannot construct a definition of man or woman that will not eventually exclude someone that they would still consider to be a man or a woman. And if that's the case, the definition doesn't work. The definition will always be a woman is someone who identifies as a woman and a man is someone who identifies as a man. Because, as we've talked about before, gender is a spectrum. And it refers to social behaviors, right? Values, norms, traditions that we associate with a certain set of, characteristics, right? So being a woman is associating yourself with those behaviors. Being a man is associating yourself with those behaviors. And sex isn't a binary because it's not just 2 options. And a binary means you're either one or the other. And if it's not either one or the other, then it can't be a binary. There's at least an intersex option, right? So it can't be a binary. But also, we know that sex and gender are bimodal. There's spaces in between, there's spaces on the side, and if it's bimodal, it can't be binary. And that's really the only thing you need to know.
Exactly.
And if we can make exceptions for some people to fit into some rigid definition, then why can't we make exceptions for trans people? The only reason you have at that point is you don't like trans people because they scare you or something.
Facts.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's pretty simple.
Not the wrong one.
No.
Wrong one. No, wrong one. Hold up. It's been a minute. Oh.
This is a
That's the
certified
one.
hood classic.
It's a certified hood classic. The real argument here, even if you don't want to get in, like if you don't want to be a gender theorist at the table, right? If you don't want to spit all this, that's fine. You don't need to memorize it all. Side on the side of freedom, like default to freedom. Like if it's not hurting anybody, and it isn't, there's no statistic that will say that trans people are grooming people disproportionately, or trans people are like doing more assaults in bathrooms. In fact, the data suggests the opposite. Mm-hmm. If there's no evidence suggesting that, being trans is somehow harmful, and it isn't, then let people do what they want. It's that simple. And if they want to claim to be the freest country in the world, let people be free.
Look at your bigoted aunt sitting at the dinner table who's never seen your genitalia and say, Aunt something, you've only ever interacted with me as a man my whole entire life. What if I told you I had a coochie?
Real.
What am I now?
What then?
What am I now? Am I all of a sudden different? Or are you going to continue to interact with me as a man?
Exactly.
Because that's the social role that I filled, and that's what you've always perceived me to be. Uh-huh. If you learn that all of a sudden there's something different in my pants, are you going to change how you treat me?
Right.
Like, come on.
It's basic respect for fucking human beings.
Yeah.
Like, that's all it is. It's just empathy for your fellow human being and being respectful to others. If somebody asked you, like, hey, don't call me this name anymore, I go by this, like as a nickname or something, you wouldn't be like, no, your legal name is Michael. I'm calling you Michael. Yeah. That's ridiculous.
I'm calling you Richard. Don't be a dick, huh?
Exactly. And it's like, there's no trans person on the world that's like, no, I am a cis man or I am a cis woman. Like, they're not saying that. They're not. Yeah. No one's being like it's just ridiculous that they even posit that's like, oh, well, if you don't use someone's right pronouns, they want to send you to jail. It's like, no, they'll correct you. Like, I've never met a trans person that's like, oh, you use the wrong pronouns. Fuck you. You deserve to go to hell.
Or sometimes
nobody acts like that.
Sometimes they don't even correct you.
Right. Because they're afraid that you'll be like a dickhead to them.
Sometimes they just let us lie.
Exactly. Like, these are human beings. You should have compassion for your fellow human being. That's really the entire argument. Moving back to economics.
Back to the economics.
Hard shift to economics. We're talking about inflation, baby.
The big one. That's going to be the big one this year.
This is a certified hood classic.
Right.
Inflation's the real certified hood classic of this year, I will say.
Of course.
It receives the Hiddo seal of certified hood classic-dom.
This is certified Iowa corner store classic, if you ask me.
Real.
Real.
And we say this is going to be a main talking point, obviously, because this is all conservatives have hammered home about. They've offered no real solutions to inflation.
In fact, only voted down real solutions to inflation.
All they talk about is how, inflation is huge. It's all Joe Biden's fault. And we'll just go through it for the one time.
Exactly. Honestly, even before we go through it, one of our pinned TikToks goes over all of the bills that would have been good that conservatives voted down. Just write that down. You can bring that up. That gives you one for like gay marriage. That gives you one for inflation. They voted no for the Inflation Reduction Act. They voted no for the PAC Act, even though I don't think that was in that video.
It wasn't in there. Neither was the IRA, but
neither was
because it hadn't passed yet. When I made the video.
Facts. My bad, gang. My bad.
Just there's a bunch of economic things
IRA.
in there.
They voted no on reducing prices at the pump. They voted no on regulating price gouging from gas companies.
And the FDA bill for baby formula.
Yep. They voted no on easing the baby formula shortage. And then went on Fox News that night to complain about the shortage.
And then there's also a slew of Supreme Court decisions just taking your rights away.
Honestly, just fucking play that TikTok if they bring it up.
Like, hey, just take 59 seconds to view this real quick.
It's the one that went viral, the one with like 900,000 views.
Exactly.
What can we say?
Easy peasy. But again, as we've talked about several times on this show, inflation right now. Inflation can be caused for a variety of reasons, right?
Yeah.
The economy is a complicated thing, hot take. But right now, inflation is being caused because, again, war in Europe, supply chain issues, and COVID reopenings, right? We knew that COVID reopenings were going to shock the economy somehow because people hadn't been doing consumerism as much as they had before. And with the war in Europe and supply chain issues that you may or may not be able to blame on the Biden administration, whatever, we're having inflation.
Yeah.
And then there's also the problem that we know companies are price gouging.
Yeah.
And I haven't seen any real retort to this that made any sense. I haven't seen any real economist that has pushed back against this or anyone on social media or media companies or whatever. I've never seen anyone offer a real counter argument to this, because if we know that companies are charging more than is necessary to offset for the increased cost of production, then they're just price gouging. I don't see any counter argument.
Profits, right? Profits are profit. They are all extra.
Right, yeah.
All extra. It's revenue minus expenses.
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
what you have left over after everything is accounted for. If you are increasing your profit margins while bitching about inflation, it simply means you are using inflation as a guise to increase those profit margins.
Yeah.
You are fucking lying.
I haven't seen any pushback that has made any logical sense whatsoever. Because production is a cost, right? Like you have to pay to get all of your raw materials, to get a service or a good or something like that to market. So if the cost for that goes up, it makes sense for your prices to increase if you want to maintain the same margin of profit, right? You want to maintain that same amount you can cream off the top and take home, or use to bump up your stock price or whatever the fuck a company is going to do. And if that number is going up, if you're profiting more, if your extra is simply more, then you have to be price gouging.
Like there's no other explanation.
Yeah.
And they have a fiduciary responsibility to their shareholders to price gouge. Because their only thing, if they're publicly traded, their only responsibility is to increase the amount of money that their shareholders receive. That's it. So why would they not take something like inflation and use it as a guide to make more fucking money? Especially when that helps them get conservative politicians elected, and those conservative politicians will then do favors for them. Favors for companies.
I haven't seen any other explanation for that. Like I don't think there is another explanation. If you're profiting more than ever during a time of inflation, then you have to just be price gouging. That's the only logical explanation there.
They're just passing it on to the consumer because one, capital flight has sent so many industries overseas.
Oh yeah.
The cost for a shipping crate on a shipping boat went up exponentially over the pandemic. That's real inflation because of the supply shock from COVID. That's real inflation because of supply chain issues. However, what's fake inflation is the extra profits that they've added on to that.
Yeah. And we don't deny that there has been real inflation, and neither should you if you're arguing with someone about this issue. There has been real inflation, and we know that it has actually hurt people. The problem is, what is the cause? And the problem is also that the solution to the problem has to be adequate, right? It has to actually address the source of the problem. And I don't know why that's controversial to say, but it's when places like the Fed, or just when the Fed raises interest rates, and the chairman of the Fed, Jerome Powell, says this is not going to lower the cost of, drugs or gasoline or whatever else it may be. I don't know how we view that as a normal fucking system. Because the only thing that does is make it harder to borrow, which makes it harder to start business and take out loans for your business, which drives unemployment up, and drives wages down. That's it. The only solution we have for record high inflation is just to fuck over the working class.
Yeah, the only solution ever to inflation is always to just push it onto the consumer.
Yeah.
Push it onto just the regular working man who's going and buying a bag of chips after his 30-hour shift.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's it. The Fed pushes it onto the consumer, and corporations that are actually doing the inflation push it onto the consumer.
Right.
That's it. You get fucked. But if you want to not get fucked, you can't just say Joe Biden did it. He pressed the money more button.
Right. Nobody holds the CEOs responsible. The government certainly doesn't. Yeah. But just in the public eye, we generally do not blame them for literally anything that happens. They are not a force of nature. They are making decisions. It's not the market that is forcing them to do something. It's them making the decision to raise their prices more than they need to. And if we can't call that out, then we're never going to find a solution to actual inflation that seems to happen every 4 years.
Yeah, Joe Biden and his Congress passing the PAC Act did not do anything to increase inflation. The government spending that's been going, it's not what's doing it. It's the fact that we had a fucking pandemic. That's it.
Yeah, so if they don't understand that, tell them they're stupid.
They're dumb.
And you can, of course,
you have every right to tell them that they're dumb at that point.
Exactly. And of course, you can bring up that Republicans voted against the IRA, which would have made drug costs cheaper and energy costs cheaper for Americans.
Which also designated billions to deficit spending.
Exactly.
Hundreds of billions of dollars to pay down the deficit.
And of course, you can bring up the PAC Act, which was, healthcare for veterans to make it cheaper for them. There was the child tax credit that was helping. I think it lowered child poverty rates by 40% or something.
And then when it went away, child poverty went up 25% overnight.
Right, exactly.
Wow.
Just genuinely good things that conservatives are opposing. Again, the gas price gouging bill. They also previously opposed paid maternity leave, which was earlier on, or maybe even in 2021 at this point. But that's another thing that they opposed. And it's no wonder people are struggling economically. It's because Republicans won't do anything to help. They refuse to be a part of the solution, and they just want to further the problem because it's good for them electorally. That's really it.
That's really it. Now moving on to my favorite thing, crime.
What I advocate for.
I love crime.
I love crime.
I love crime.
Well, it's like crime is good.
Exactly.
I like crime.
I hate superhero movies. I'd be rooting for the thugs on the street.
For real, they're hustlers.
Real.
They're hustlers. So obviously, debates on crime are going to happen, right? That's one of the big narratives. This and inflation are the two big things that Republicans have used to push back against Joe Biden. And I want to give you every tool you need to push back against this crime narrative
in a more condensed form.
Exactly.
If you want a longer form discussion, I would implore you to check out Hiddo episode 70 Hard for Crime.
Hard for Crime, that was a good one.
Hard for Crime. Big long discussion about crime and why conservatives got it all wrong.
They do got it all wrong. That's a good sales pitch.
Got it all wrong.
But anyway, debates on crime, I feel like, are often a trap for leftists because it's easy for them to say oh, so you just want to be soft on criminals? You just want to treat murderers with kid gloves?
Yeah.
Because that's basically what their argument boils down to is this person did a bad thing, therefore they deserve to be punished. And you can obviously say yes, when you bring up an individual case of someone doing a murder, that person deserves to go to jail, right?
Yeah.
That's not a controversial thing to say, and you shouldn't feel like you're conceding a point by saying yes, this person who killed another human deserves to go to jail, right? But that's not really what the broad argument is about. They will often say that crime is generally going up. First thing you got to point out is it really though?
First thing you got to point at is that right now, conservative perception of crime is at an all-time high, something we covered on Hard for Crime with the actual statistics in that episode. Conservative perception of crime right now is at the highest it's ever been, higher than what it was during the crime wave in the 90s, the legitimate, actual very bad crime wave in the 90s, where crime is not that high. It's not that high. There's a discongruence between conservatives' perception of crime and even more of a discongruence between rural conservatives and people who live in urban areas. Rural conservatives who are pretty disconnected from all the shit they talk about in cities think that cities are just a fucking battleground.
Battle zone, yeah.
They think the battle bus is flying over New York and dropping everybody down.
Yeah. No, yeah, exactly. It's is crime actually going up, or is it your perception of crime that is going up?
Yeah.
Because that is the real argument there. And it's if you actually look at data to data that tracks crime rates in the United States, you'll see that month over month, year over year, the crime rate's been relatively steady for a while now.
Yeah. It went up a little bit 2021 and during the pandemic, but it has not been skyrocketing, and like conservatives claim.
There's reasons for that, and it's always going to be socioeconomic conditions.
Maybe it's the fact that we're in a recession.
Yeah. Yeah, and maybe it's the fact that, we were in a pandemic and benefits started to dry up for people in 2021 and things were looking pretty bleak and socioeconomic conditions and political conditions, frankly, were pretty bad, pretty disastrous. So, of course, crime is going to spike up a little bit because we were going through a recession. We are going through a recession and we were going through a pandemic. So, yeah, of course. Of course. That shouldn't be surprising to anybody, but to pin that on Joe Biden is kind of ridiculous.
Yeah. I feel like just basically when you're talking about anything about crime with conservative, you have to avoid talking about things that are going on right now, unless you do want to get in those statistics about perceived crime versus actual crime. Look at actual crime rates, shit like that. Crime statistics, not in the pseudo N-word way, but in the general, genuine, I'm talking about what's actually actual going data, on kind of way.
Yeah.
You kind of have to steer clearly from that because you're always going to get in the hypotheticals. Well, what about letting rapists and murderers out of jail?
Exactly.
You know what I mean? And that's just not a winning argument rhetorically. Obviously, we're right, but rhetorically, you're not going to win that at the dinner table. If you want to talk about something, I think you need to break it down into issues of crime and punishment in the literal sense. What do you think is an actual punishment for this crime, and why do you think that punishment is justified? Yes, I can agree that if someone goes and murders someone and is otherwise unhinged, they need to be removed from society.
Right.
But the question is, do they need to be removed from society for the rest of their life?
Yeah.
Forever, or do they need to be killed for that?
And it's not only that, because even that is reductive, because the point here is that sure, there are rapists and murderers that interact with the criminal justice system that should go away because they did something horrible, right?
They're the minority of people in the criminal justice system.
They are an infinitesimal minority compared to the majority of people that interact with the criminal justice system that are not murderers, that did not do anything violent, that are locked up for, things like drug offenses, selling or using drugs, or, stealing or otherwise hustling. And it's would these people really be doing what they're doing? Would they be selling drugs? Would they be stealing, enter whatever crime? Would they be doing that if they had better economic opportunity?
Real.
Is a life of crime really appealing in the face of having other options? And of course, you can find people that were didn't take some job at fucking Target or something and instead went to go and push weed or cocaine or, some other drug. You can find instances of that, but it's shouldn't it be an indictment of the system as a whole that actual, real, formal employment opportunities are viewed as worse or less advantageous when compared to like selling drugs and doing something criminal that could land you in jail?
Shouldn't we go and examine the incentive structures within certain communities and why communities have those incentive structures to see why people don't want to go for traditional formal employment and why they prefer to do things like sell drugs or other illegal activity? Like, isn't that what it really boils down to?
Like, isn't that a larger systemic problem that goes beyond one individual president or one individual political ideology? And it's like, again, if we want to talk about solving crime, getting to the source of crime, it's always going to be addressing socioeconomic conditions. And any solution that doesn't contain that is going to fall short. Because in the United States, we have the largest prison population in the world. Crazy. It's at almost like 2 million people. It's been floating around 2 million people for some time now. And almost half of them, about 45% of them, 45% of the people in prison for federal offenses are there for drug offenses.
Yeah.
That's 45% of people for federal offense. Like, that's crazy.
And it's like non-violent drug offenses, isn't it?
Yeah.
Nuts.
And it's like
no harm to society whatsoever going on there.
And on top of that, there are hundreds of thousands of people that are sitting in jail awaiting convictions.
Yeah.
They are just in jail because they either can't afford bail or they're being stuck there for whatever reason, that are in jail waiting years to actually get to trial, that just have their freedom taken away for a crime that we don't even know if they committed, that they haven't even been formally convicted of committing.
And then if they are found innocent, they get like minor restitution.
Yeah,
they get like a couple $100 maybe for being locked up for half a year.
It's like, I don't understand how we can call ourselves the freest country in the world, or even say that we have freedom in this country when it's possible for you to be locked up for years on end with no real recourse for doing nothing, for not even being convicted of a crime. Like, what happened to innocent until proven guilty at that point? You're paying the price for a crime you might not have even committed. And I don't think the payoff for that is very good for society as a whole.
Oh, are you talking about getting rid of cash bail systems?
Oh yeah.
What about all the murderers that's going to let out on the street?
And it's like the real question here is like, who is responsible for crime, right? And like the easy answer, the conservative answer is always going to be, well, the individual, right? They chose to commit a crime.
They chose to break the law.
But we ask, and you should ask when you're having these kinds of conversations, is like, what kinds of situations compel people in mass to commit these sort of crimes? And also, what do we consider to be a crime? And who benefits from having millions of people locked up?
And also, just, is the law the ultimate source of what's moral?
Exactly.
Like, is it really?
Yeah. Exactly.
Or is the law ever changing because we're trying our best?
Unless you're like a religious zealot, like you don't think anyone's inherently bad, right?
Yeah.
Like most people would probably say when you come out the womb, you're not inherently good or inherently bad, right? You learn these behaviors over time. And if that's the case, then what kind of conditions, what kind of lessons learned encourage you to do crime? And we're not trying to like absolve anyone of their personal responsibility to like, better themselves as a human being or not kill other humans, of course. But when we're talking about crime and we're talking about policing and crime policies in the prison system, we're talking about large economic, societal scale policies. And thankfully, we know how to fix these things. And we have seen in other countries when they, when they do things like decriminalize drugs, they see amazing success.
It works great.
Exactly, because when you're not putting people in prison, when you're not criminalizing them for what is an addiction or criminalizing them for having no real economic opportunity, then suddenly things get a lot better. And I would argue that that's a better way to go about it.
True.
Because just putting people in jail because they are a part of the surplus population that can't find any economic opportunity, that, they live in a city where there's more people than there are jobs, putting them in jail doesn't really seem like a solution to me.
When you take away opportunities from people who already had little to no opportunities to begin with and wonder why they reoffend, something's wrong. Something's wrong with the way you think.
There's some crazy statistic that it's like if you're born into poverty or like some level below the, a certain threshold of income, that like your life chances of going to prison is like 1 in 3. That's crazy. Like you come out the womb and you already have a 30% chance of going to jail.
And we're just okay with that. Like, come on. Like that's a trend on such a scale where it's like, it can't be just these individuals choosing to do crime, which I advocate for.
Exactly. And the solution from the conservative side is like more police, more prisons. Because they'll always point to like, well, in the 90s when the crime rate started to fall is when mass incarceration started to go up. And it's like, okay, then why do we still have millions of people in prison?
Yeah.
And like we we know that it is so reductive to say that, oh, well, mass incarceration started and that's why the crime rate went down. We know that like deindustrialization was happening in the United States for the decades prior to the crime wave. And we know that that caused massive crime waves literally everywhere in the world.
Yeah.
And we also know that crime rates started to go down when the economy started to stabilize. Like they will say the most just insane fucking shit, and how you respond to that is like, well, okay, again, let's be compassionate to human beings, and we can fix the conditions that people are exposed to.
They have never heard that correlation does not equal causation.
Exactly.
They
exactly.
don't fundamentally understand that.
Yeah. There's tons of explanations for why like the 90s crime wave eventually died down. I've even seen some people say things like Roe v. Wade had something to do with it. Like I've seen some economists say with like actually compelling data that because people had access to legal abortions, there were less people being born into poverty because people could get abortions rather than have kids when they get pregnant.
Oh, that's wild.
Which is like very interesting. I haven't like studied the data. I've only like read preliminary things about it. But that is like there's so many factors that contribute to crime rates going up and down. And you cannot just say like, especially because we know that we have studies that prisons and policing do not actually deter crime. And police don't stop crime. They show up afterwards. So like we know that this isn't the solution.
They show up afterwards, make you relive your trauma for some procedural, like so a guy can write it down on his notepad and then kind of forget about it.
Exactly.
Love that. I love cops.
And the last thing that we have on this this part 3 of Holiday Pregame, and the last thing I have at least.
That's right. That's the last thing we got going on.
Is abortion. Because this is another big one that you might hear at the dinner table. Although, some 70%. I
feel like this one is less likely.
You think so?
Than the other ones. Yeah. Most people are fine with abortion.
That's what I was thinking.
And a lot of the conservatives that I know are also fine with abortion.
See, I feel like a lot of people have like family members, like Gen X family members.
Oh, yeah. There's always the outliers. There's always the weird ones.
Very against abortion because they think it's murder, right?
Yeah.
And we've talked about this a bunch. You can go and review our older episodes on abortion.
2 months worth of content just
all
about abortion.
Yeah, exactly. You can go review all the arguments if you want to, but the basic premise here is like, if they think it's a life, you're never going to convince them otherwise.
Yeah.
You just will not be able to.
It's an unwinning argument at the dinner table. You can't unpack all the things that are going with that. You can't break out a PhD philosophy thesis just to be able, that's what you'd have to do to be able to convince them. And it probably still wouldn't convince them because it'd fly over their heads.
And it's like, even then, there's no conclusive evidence, like conclusive scientific evidence to suggest when personhood begins.
Yeah.
Like, never. Like, this has been a philosophical argument for, like, as long as philosophy has existed, like, what it means to be a person, what identity means. No one's ever solved that problem.
Yeah, hot take, you could have killed me till I gained consciousness when I was 3.
And I wouldn't know.
I wouldn't have remembered.
I wouldn't have known. I would have ceased to exist.
That's that.
And, of course, the grounds you always need to argue on when it comes to abortion is the government should not be able to force you to support the life of another. That's it. And if they disagree with that, then I guess they're like, what, for tyranny or something like that?
It's all about bodily autonomy, and you say, okay, I'm going to go step in front of your car while you're on the highway, and then I'm going to force you to filter all the blood that goes through my body in your kidneys.
And if you don't, then you'll go to jail.
Yeah, you have to
at the hand of the federal government.
A transplant of all your organs.
Yeah, yeah. And of course, there's other ways to lower abortion rates that we've talked about that Republicans seem to not be for. Free contraception,
comprehensive sex ed,
free prenatal care, paid maternity leave again. Like, there's all these kinds of things that they could support that they don't support that seem to run in opposition to their will to lower abortion rates.
Real.
So,
it's almost as if it's not a principled stance.
Yeah, real.
Not a well thought out stance, because it's definitely founded on some principles, some wrong ones,
some really bad principles.
Yeah, some bad principles.
But yeah, I guess if you encounter the abortion argument, you can dunk on them. One thing we didn't include in here though is student debt relief. I don't know if that's going to be an argument.
I forgot about that one. Yeah,
I don't know. By the way, I got an email from the Department of Education the other day.
Oh,
and they said you've been approved.
Okay,
so I don't have to sue the federal government. Let's go. They said you've been approved, but we just can't give it to you because it's being held up in courts. And low-key, I thought it was a little petty to be like, they have lawsuits against us, but I fuck with it hard.
No, absolutely.
Because like they signed it, like
pettiness.
Like Joe Biden and whoever the Secretary of Education is for the U.S. They both signed it. And they're like, we're fighting for you. We want you to get this money, that kind of thing. And I was like, that kind of goes hard.
I said, I want this money as well.
Yeah, I want it as well.
You better be fighting.
And if I don't get it, I'm going to spoil it for everybody else.
I literally have money on the line.
Yeah. Some extra news stories real quick, though, that we didn't mention before. We did mention that Nancy Pelosi's leaving.
Yeah.
Smoking on that back.
Rip Bozo.
Yeah, Rip Bozo. And by leaving, I mean, like, she's still going to be in Congress for right now.
She'll be a representative, but no one will care about her.
No leadership positions at all, which means she's not even going to be minority leader for the House, which is fine.
Not even like minority whip.
Yeah, nothing like that.
Like that. I wonder who is going to be the
I think it's Hakeem Jeffries. You know who that is? He's from New York.
Oh, I had seen some
very
stuff about
pro-Israel.
Let's go. Why?
He claims to be progressive, but then he also said he's gonna like never bend to the democratic socialists on the left. I think
what the fuck?
I think he's like I don't know. He's like he tries to be progressive and then gets mad when someone like AOC comes through and is like, "Well, I'm actually progressive," and he's like, "Fuck." You know what I mean?
God fucking damn it.
So he kind of seems like Nancy Pelosi 2.0 if I'm being honest.
Oh damn.
Yeah.
Well, that's fun.
I think it might not be him. They still got to vote, I believe.
Can't wait to preemptively fire Hakeem Jeffries.
For real. No, I'm voting for
I'll be texting numbers to that campaign.
Another news story that broke out pretty early last week was everyone thought World War III was starting. Because
oh my God.
There was a preliminary report that came out from, I don't remember where, maybe the AP or something like that, where they thought a Russian missile had hit Poland.
Mm-hmm. It killed two Polish farmers.
And killed two Polish farmers, but it turns out that it was just it was something that, I think it was a Ukrainian missile or like an
a missile
anti-air
defense system.
Yeah. It was, they tried to knock like a rocket off path and then like an explosion hit the two farmers. So it was actually kind of Ukraine's fault in that way.
But it's no one's actual fault because it was an accident that no one could have predicted. But conservatives took that information and ran wild with it.
Oh, yeah.
I saw him on Twitter earlier talking about like just replying to CNN tweets and just being like, you lied about Russia doing all this. And they're just so pro-Russia.
Yeah,
like it's actually kind of crazy.
Yeah, I mean we haven't talked about Ukraine in a while, and there's not really any real updates I think we have to offer because it's like the war is still happening, Putin's still being pushed back,
money's still being sent over,
Putin's still a bitch boy. But it's like like Republicans are just fully on board with like not helping Ukraine at all and just having Russia take over. I guess. Very interesting stance for the freedom lovers.
And it's like there is like an argument to be had, I feel like, about like all the money we are sending over there. Because the conservatives have been saying like we're sending all this money, but we won't help our citizens. But it's like, yeah, but you wouldn't help the citizens with this money. You just give this money to like the military.
Right. Like you don't actually want to help our citizens.
Yeah, I'd be cool with taking that money and doing free healthcare.
Yeah, and it's like Democrats, at least to some extent, are trying to help citizens by like, dedicating money to upgrading our infrastructure or, like lowering healthcare costs for the elderly or something like that. And you're voting no. Like, what do you mean? We're trying to do that. Like, well, and it's like that's the thing that kind of gets me is like, yeah, I can understand the frustration of seeing millions of dollars sent to another country to fight a war that, we'll never actually see. Although, we don't want people to die. We don't want Russia to take over. We don't like tyranny. We like freedom, that kind of stuff. I understand the frustration though, right? Because it is millions of dollars and we're having real problems here as well, like domestic problems. But the thing is like, Republicans vote against everything good that comes up. They voted against the PAC Act to begin with. Like, come on, that's healthcare for veterans.
Bill. Like, that's everything that they grift about.
Yeah. Like, they voted against paid maternity leave. They vote against, like, everything else that the government could spend money on to actually help people. They're against it. Mm-hmm. Like, they're against students getting, like, debt relief. Like, come on. Yeah. Come on. Like, it's ridiculous. But they can make that argument because
tax dollars going towards American citizens right there.
They can make that argument because or at least they were. Kind of still are. They're the minority party. They were out of power, and they can make those kinds of arguments when they're not in power because they don't have to face any backlash, right? No one can be like, okay, then propose a bill.
And now it's like they can still do it because they only really have the power to introduce a couple bills maybe that will never pass the Senate, and then they have the power to make committees that will never do anything.
Yeah.
They have the power to establish the anti-drag show committee.
Yeah, exactly.
The committee to investigate child numbers at drag shows.
Uh-huh. And that'll be
a fun one.
That'll spend like $3 billion over the next 4 years.
Literally.
And that's where all the money is going to go.
That's where the Ukraine money should be going. It should be to the Republican House Judiciary Committee on investigating the Republican House Judiciary Committee on taking two MLM gay couples and two WLW lesbian couples and actually pairing the men up with the women, and then they can get married and actually procreate because that's what it's all about.
Exactly.
So that they don't marry each other because that's wrong.
Yeah, exactly. That's the House Intelligence Committee on eugenics?
And the House Intelligence Committee on finding two gay couples to pair with two lesbian couples so that they can get married and be straight.
That's the whole name. Fit that into an acronym somehow.
We can make it snappy.
Anyway, I think that brings us to the end of the episode.
Yes, it does.
I hope you all are pre-gamed enough. I hope you all are prepared enough for the holiday season and you're ready to, because this episode comes out on a Wednesday for everybody.
It comes out the day before Thanksgiving, so these takes are going to be fresh in your mind.
So if you are celebrating or you have some kind of break and you're going to, be with family over the weekend, I hope you're ready because it's going to be a bloodbath.
You can listen while you're preparing turkey. You can listen while you're preparing stuffing, while you're getting ready to absolutely stuff your family filled with knowledge.
Exactly. Stuff your family with indoctrination.
That's right. While you're getting ready to indoctrinate your family.
I support
stuff all of this leftist drivel.
Yeah.
Down there.
All of these leftist
throats.
lies. Everything I said today was a lie. I made it all up.
Oh, off the dome.
I don't believe in any of this.
Off dome. You think I have show notes right here?
It's an empty page.
Looking at Reddit.
Yeah, exactly. I'm stealing all of it. It's just I'm a liar. That's what I am. Anyway, got to finish the episode.
We got to.
Got to finish the episode.
And you know what comes at the end of every single episode?
We got to leave off by thanking our financial backers, our beautiful patrons that allow this show to happen.
Exactly.
That give us, they are the lifeblood, really.
Honestly.
Of everything that we do. They are the funders of this 4-letter organization.
The fucking money that courses through my veins, through the veins of this organization,
my green
the veins
veins
of this basement.
Exactly. So special thanks to Quickest Scrapbook Layouts, Nikki Nine Lives, Kaden Kraut, Lord T, Chris the Postman, Christy Beck, Talia Katz, 40% Spite, Andrew Harris, Mike Chaplinsky, Mattias T, The B-Plot, Omar Zuno, Clayton LaFed, Mark Yeager, Sarah McRoberts, Derek Messina, Dylan B, The Mind Sculptors, Kaz, Caleb Joy, Jim Bobs, Carl D, Rich Toro, Tari, Gavin Meyer Maldonado, Hunter W, Fergalaki, Max Vasquez, Jacob Rogers, Colton Muberry, Fixer Punk, Jim Egbers, Jeff Muzzy, Ted Cruz's Boy Toy, Bagel Burrito, Cincy Alex Bread, Joe Stenstrom, Adrian Sandoval, and my mom. Thank you all for supporting the show on Patreon.
Classic.
And I love you.
Wonderful people.
And if you're listening this long, if you're listening to the show all the way through and you're not on that list yet,
yo,
I got news.
Yo, why are you listening to the end of the show?
Yeah, you're all the way at the end. Like, we could be talking about anything right now.
Real.
And you're still here, and you're not signed up to be a patron. That's kind of
crazy.
unacceptable.
That's crazy. Get to $600. You can ask us a question.
Exactly.
$700, we'll do something else.
We'll figure it out.
It's the holiday season. You should be giving.
Yeah, you should be Get us out of here. Get us out of here.